Let's dive in. All right, so I want to share just a little bit. I want to introduce Ben to you, to everyone. Hopefully everyone heard. He will be leading our Brooks / Whitewater / I don't know what we're calling it yet. If it's Brooks or Whitewater. Brooks or Whitewater?
Crossroads at Whitewater.
Crossroads at Whitewater. In Brooks. I got it. Ben will be leading out there, and then he will be leading our young adults as well. The other thing I just wanted to briefly...
Y'all doing great.
Thanks, Mike.
What was that? Evaluation?
He's like, this is taking way too long for him to get going.
Well done, well done.
Thanks. The other thing I want to hit on is I dropped it in our Slack channel today, and I had shared it previously. One of the things that we're trying to do is create a better span of care for our team overall. So we started with some worship team leads, kind of caring for the worship team. Our ensemble has grown to where we're going to bring some more team leads in. And then Joe's working on the band side of that. Dustin's working on the production side of it. And Kathy's working on the first impression side of it. So when someone reaches out to you, they're just reaching out just to check in on you so we can stay connected as a team. And the heart of that is to keep those about 4 to 5 people under someone's awareness, and then I literally send questions to them to say, here's what I want you to cover, here's what I want you to ask. And then it's not like a report back to me, it just helps me be aware of what's going on in people's lives and what needs to be followed up on. So that's one of the things we're really trying to work on over this first half of the ministry year. So here's where my mind, Lindsay. I know I always forget people. I always am I see people downstairs. Who are we missing? So here's where my mind has been the past little bit. As you guys know, hopefully you know, what's one of the things that Ken's been saying consistently at the beginning of all of his messages?
Come to TC.
Come to TC. What's the correct language around this?
Seat allocation problem.
Seat allocation problem. There we go. So we're obviously, as a church, reaching a point where there's growth happening. It's a mixture of our church, everyone in this room, other people in our church, reaching out and inviting people, connecting people. I feel like you guys have new people with you all the time. I can't even keep track of who comes sometimes. You're always inviting people. And so it's a mixture of that. It's a mixture of people moving into the area and trying to find a church, and then people just ask, and so they end up at Crossroads. So there's this going on. So my mind has been around this idea of growth. And what does it look like? Can you actually create growth, or is it something that just happens organically? And where is our team at in the midst of this? And so it's kind of just been a thought that I've been churning over. And usually when I think through things, it's a mixture of reading stuff, listening to stuff, processing things, conversations with other people, and also just asking God for wisdom of what does it look like? So what does it look like for our team to grow, embrace this idea of our church growing? What does that mean for all of us? This is also coming from the standpoint, I'm going to share it. You don't have to go home and tell everyone, don't get people freaked out by this. We're going to go to 3 gatherings at some point over at 16 on a Sunday morning. So that's 4 at that campus. We're obviously opening Whitewater in Brooks. And then there's other conversations that Ken's having. I'm sharing that with you because there's a couple things that we as a team are going to have to do. Over the next 4 weeks, we are going to try and get our gatherings down to 1 hour and 5 minutes to 10 minutes. Did I get that right?
Yeah.
1 hour and 5 to 10 minutes. That means our worship sets are a 17-minute timer at the front end, max 20 minutes. So it's a 3-song worship set. I know, right? But here's our mindset. Our mindset can't be like, oh, I wish we had more time. It always needs to be, how do we make the most with the time that's been given? How do we rise up as leaders to what is being asked of us? So we're going to spend the next 4 weeks. Ken has a 30-minute timer to preach and has given himself 5
Adam, you think you got it? No. No, long time.
Is that one of those things where you really want them at 37, so you're telling me?
No, he said it. He said it. He said, and because we asked the question, what do you want, a 35-minute timer or a 30-minute timer? He said, I want a 30-minute timer. I'm shooting to land at 30 minutes to 35. Wow. So we talked through this. Anyway, I'm sharing this with you guys so you know there are, like, we're obviously trying to embrace what God is giving us and steward it well. And so there's growth going on in our church. What does it mean for us? And the thought that has been churning through my head is there such a thing, or a, not formula, that's the wrong way of looking at it, but is there a way of continually creating momentum of growth? Is there a way in our personal lives and within our team life, from worship to production to first impressions, is there a way of continuing to create a momentum of growth in my life and then in the life of our team? If our church is growing, that also means we need to grow in step, or even a little bit ahead. It'd be better to be a little bit ahead. So then when Ken comes and says, hey, we're not just going to start one campus, we're actually going to start 3 campuses, that we have teams ready to get sent out. He's not going to say that, by the way. I'm just like, that's where my head goes. Okay. All right. So I just wanted to start off with a question just to throw out there. Why don't you think people grow? Another way of putting it is, why do you think people stop growing?
They become complacent.
Complacent, okay. Burnout.
I think just not setting goals.
Not setting goals.
Lack of ambition.
Okay.
No vision.
No vision. All right. Any others?
Accountability with checking.
No one's following up with them. Okay. Type accountability.
Be a pride thing.
Okay.
I'm arrived, I've made it, I'm good to go.
Okay.
No one challenging them.
Okay.
Comfortable where we're at.
Okay. Think about an area of your life that you like stop growing in, and who wants to like share what it is. I'll go first. I stopped growing in my ability to play cello once I hit the age of 20. I stopped taking private lessons. It wasn't even complacency. It was just I didn't have time to keep learning how. So, like, that had nothing to do with complacency, lack of accountability, lack of setting goals. It had everything to do with I'm poor. I can't spend $60 an hour for a lesson, and I live by myself. And they don't let you play in high school orchestras anymore once you're 19, 20 years old. So there was nowhere for me to go with it, so I just stopped. All right. So think of something that you just like stopped growing.
I think around about 4 years when I doing IT stuff at Chick-fil-A, I stopped growing in my general IT knowledge because I was in an environment that didn't really allow for growth. Like
Okay.
I hit my umbrella, my cap on how many issues I knew how to fix,
Okay.
and anything else I had to send it to another team or something. So like I wasn't in a place that allowed me to branch out and learn new fields and learn new
Good. Okay. So an organization could stunt your growth because there's nothing else to explore in it. Puts a cap on it. Who else? What's something you stopped growing in?
My trousers.
Okay. Don't really know how to follow up. What questions to ask?
I can think of like times that I've shifted my focus, like
Okay.
purposely stopped growing in an area. Like when I worked at a company where I needed to know Spanish really well, like, because I speak Spanish, but like, I was like all about it, just trying to talk all the time to people, and I just kind of like, I can have a conversation and not die, but it was just because my focus shifted, and I don't kind of need that right now in my life, so, and maybe play other things too. Yeah.
Why do you think teams and organizations stop growing?
I mean, leadership issues,
Okay.
really, yeah.
Leadership issues. Why else do teams and organizations stop growing?
Or people don't believe in the cause, believe in the team.
So they're not bought into it, the mission. Okay.
The ambition's not fueled.
I'll expound on that.
So people who are passionate about a project per se aren't allowed to be passionate, or they're not pushed to be to move towards those goals. They're listened to, but they're not pushed towards them.
Okay.
Sometimes when you get a large group of people that have already been in that environment for a really long time, then when you bring new people in, they're not open to like new ideas or growing in different areas.
Okay.
And sometimes it's like offense or hurt feelings, and people just,
Do you believe that your personal growth affects the growth of our team?
Yes, absolutely.
Do you believe your personal growth affects the growth of our church?
Yes.
So I'm making an assumption here that because you're leaders within Crossroads Church, that you have a desire and a fuel to grow. And I'll state that I won't ask people if you want to grow or not, because like, that's not weird. If you say no, I don't know what to do. But my assumption is, because you're here, that you want to grow. Either as an individual, just as the person that God's created, you want to grow in life, or you want to grow in an area that you're like serving within our team. And my belief also is because you want to grow personally, you probably want to help other people grow as well, right? So I'm going to give us 3 ways to create momentum of growth. I'm going to talk through the first one somewhat quickly. The second one we're going to fly right by. And the third one is where we're going to camp out for a little bit. So 3 ways that I personally believe that we can create momentum for growth within our team and also within our personal lives. And as I'm sharing this, I want you to think in advance, what is one area that I want to grow in? Just as we're talking through this, it might be a skill set. It might be learning something that you haven't learned before. It might be how you interact with other people. It might be your role within the team. What is one thing that you want to grow in? So 3 ways we create momentum for growth. The first one is preparation. And it might seem obvious, but I don't actually think it's that obvious. I think a lot of people do not prepare for things, and so they stop growing. I think they just like, they either have an attitude of they've arrived, or because of the role that I have, I don't really need to prepare in any type of way. Preparation is the action or process of making ready, right? So that means you're making ready something. Saw that, because I know where it's at on the phone. I saw this the other day, and I thought it was really good. And I took a screenshot of it, and I just was like, this is the attitude that I want to have with preparation. This pastor, John Tyson, posted, he's from the Church of the City in New York. He said, I'm working on a couple things right now that I don't anticipate seeing real fruit from for about another 10 to 15 years. He's preparing right now, working on something right now that he's not going to see the fruit from for another 10 to 15 years. That type of preparation. How are you preparing, right? Not how are we preparing for the coming weekend, but how are we preparing as leaders for the roles that we have right now and what's to come. And then he continues, he's in his 40s right now, he said, That means I'm sowing seeds for my mid-50s. Play the long game, folks. That's what we do. And that attitude, that mindset when it comes to preparation, if we're going to create momentum for growth happens through preparation. So how do you prepare? What's your thought process around preparation? Why do you prepare the way that you do? So I've shared this before. I always put one word over 12 months of my life, starting in August, going through July. And the word for this year for me is preparation. And it's, what am I doing in the times that people aren't watching? How am I preparing for moments that I have yet to step into? How, and the question that we keep asking as staff, my question for us is never, how are we doing with what we've been given? My question is always, are we leading as if our team is twice the size of us? That is preparation for the future. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. This is like a repeat of youth on Wednesday night. I was like sick the past couple of weeks. It was awful. And I told Jesse that I would cover for him in youth when Matthias was born. And 2 weeks ago he sent a text and he said, I'm getting sidetracked right now, but go with me. He said, hey, I think Bailey's going to be induced Tuesday. And that was Monday night, and he asked me to speak on suffering, and I literally had Wednesday down to finalize the message for the following week. Anyway. And he wouldn't say if he needed me to cover or not, so then I just said, hey, I'll cover for you for the next 2 weeks. I have enough thoughts on suffering that I can stretch this over 2 weeks. And so I did the first night. That Thursday, I got sick. Was out, sick, lost my voice. And then I come back, and I'm back last Wednesday for the first time, and then do the second one. And I barely have a voice. Most of it was I feel like sounded like me screaming. Not intentionally, it was just trying to get my voice out. And then I'm up there, and my nose starts running, and I can't figure out what to do. And then I see this Kleenex box over on the side, so I go all the way to the side of the stage and said, I'm sorry, I've been sick. And the Kleenex box is empty. And I walk all the way to the other side of the stage, and I spent the rest of the time just trying to hold it in. It was awful. Anyway, momentum for growth. How are you preparing for things? What's your process like? Momentum for growth begins with how we prepare, okay? Growth doesn't happen just like that. It's not this thing. Preparation is the beginning stage for momentum for growth, okay? You gotta pull back in order to throw something, right? That is preparation for that release moment. So, just some questions to ask and thoughts around preparation. We need to prepare mentally. So, how am I thinking about stepping into this? What's going on around me? What's my mental game plan? How's my attitude? Okay? Attitude says a lot about this. So it's easy for us as a team to get in the routine, to step into the gatherings that we get to facilitate, to step into the gatherings that we get to be a part of leading, and not check our attitude. To just show up and think, I know what's going on, right? And attitude, in my opinion, it's seen a lot in how we communicate and to others, and also the demeanor, as in the posture of our body, says a lot about attitude. So how's my thinking in this moment? Where are my thoughts been at? Am I ready to step into this moment? I had 3 weeks ago, we had our bathroom flood for the second time since being here, and it was literally the exact same pipe that they fixed, and when they fixed it, they shot a nail through it, and it finally rusted out. And so our bathroom floods, and it's a Friday, and I was just I was ticked, if you can imagine me, ticked about something like that, furious as can be. And I knew I wasn't in the mental headspace, and I couldn't figure out how to get in the mental headspace, and I almost texted Lane Joe and said, I feel like I shouldn't leave this weekend because my head is not in the right space. And so Ashley said, I think what we need to do is we just need to, you always do better whenever we get out and we do a little bit of hiking. So we went and we hiked, just so I could reset mentally for leading that weekend. And I needed that. So that piece, how are you stepping in? How's your mind? So we prepare mentally, we prepare emotionally. Where are your emotions at? Are they in check? There's a difference from how you think in your emotions as well. We don't always get to control our emotions, but are you aware of what's going on inside of you? This is about the heart. It's about our presence, the physical presence that we bring into this place. It's about healthy attitudes and outlooks. Joe did a great job this past weekend at 16. Phil was there. Who else was at 16? Dustin was there.
I didn't.
Well, you weren't, sir. I was like, why are you raising your hand? I don't remember. Madeline was there. Ben was there. And he shared with our team just out of Psalms 51, because we were doing Set a Fire, because Ken requested it, and that's what you do. If anyone's wondering how Set a Fire ended up in the set list, that's how. And Joe's sharing out of Psalms 51, creating me a pure heart, right? That side of our emotions. What's our heart posture like? Am I emotionally in a place of health? Am I reacting to things or proactively leading through this? So we prepare mentally, we prepare emotionally, we prepare skillfully. Okay? Am I coasting? Or am I over-preparing? There is such a thing as our team over-preparing. Okay? Like, you can be too over-prepared for something. That means you don't know how to deviate from the plan. Okay? It's called being super rigid, this stuff, right? So there's one way of stepping in and saying, man, I've done this 1,000 times. Like, I know how to do it, and you kind of coast through it. There's the other side of I've over-prepared and I don't know how to make adjustments in the moment. And then there's the side where we want to be with our skill sets. So this goes from either greeting people to running something in production to being on Band of Volvins. Every single one of us has a skill, a craft that we're bringing in. How's my craft in this moment? Am I prepared for it? So that side of it, okay? And this is why we started doing like team night trainings. I feel like I've said this before. I don't know how to, without us creating space of purposely training people in all areas, as a team, we don't have space to train people. You either learn in the moment, hands-on, or we had to create some sort of space in order to give people an experience of knowing how to get a skill set in a specific way. So our next team night training, FI is doing with the ushers, right? Of how to seat. So Ken's been talking, we have a seat allocation problem. Here's what people don't see. What people don't see is when you stand on stage and you look out, you can actually see where several seats are. Okay? So this takes our entire usher team buying into the idea that all of us need to grow. How are they growing in their skill set? How are they preparing in this way of knowing how to appropriately direct people towards seats, right? That mindset is what we need. That takes a skill set to know how to communicate with someone, disarm someone, make sure that they're okay with, hey, this room is full, let me go and find the best seat possible for me. Right? That's a relational skill set that people need. Okay? So, we prepare skillfully, we prepare physically. Okay? You can't lead when your body isn't healthy. You're going to feel it. You're going to feel the wear and tear of it. Creating a momentum of growth requires physical health. Okay, so back to another just practical thing that we had to do because of where my voice was at, and it's hurting after I knew it would after leaving. Bye, Carrie.
Bye, Carrie.
Bye.
Enjoy Indiana. Enjoy the Midwest.
No, don't enjoy it and then move back. Bye. I'm just kidding.
Don't push that.
I love you, Carrie.
I know people that enjoy the Midwest, Brooke, and people that never move out of the Midwest.
Yeah.
Okay, so you don't have much.
Very true.
Physically, so because I lost my voice Thursday, it was still hurting really bad, and so we made the call to move people around. I knew I wasn't going to be able to make it through Saturday night and 2 on Sunday morning. I knew I had 1 in me, but the right move is to know where you're at health-wise, and if you can't step in and execute your role, it's okay to say, I'm not in a physically healthy place. But if we're going to create momentum of growth in our life, we also need to be aware of the physical side of this, right? We're working with this. Lydia and Anna are caring for our high school, middle school vocal team of females, and Leighton is doing a great job with the young men. One of the things with young people, though, is you have to teach them really practical things. Physically, you have to tell them when to go to bed if they're going to serve on a weekend, so they know when to wake up, so they know when to show up somewhere. Because when they come dragging in, groggy as can be, and they're like, I was up till 2 a.m. and I just couldn't sleep. I'm like, you're not physically prepared for this moment. You need to be physically.
Part of the video.
I'm not calling out anyone.
Just like, I do my best. I tell my kids what to do and they don't listen.
If you're going to create growth, if we're going to create a momentum of growth, we need to let people know, right? When we say yes to serving others, that means we say no to doing the things that we want to do all the time, okay? Because service is sacrifice, and that means we're sacrificing something. And I know all of you know this, but I also said you're going to be leading other people. This is practical in leading other people, okay? And then we prepare spiritually. At the end of the day, what we do is spiritual, okay? At the end of the day, it really matters because it's spiritual. We're part of the kingdom of heaven. And as the Bible says, our battle is not against flesh and blood. It's against rulers and principalities and forces at work in the spiritual world around us. We have to be prepared spiritually. And the thing with all of these is no one can do it for you. Like, it's on every single one of us to do. There is a reason we do devotional and prayer times before we step out and lead. We're trying to make sure all of us are in this place of unity and our heart's in the right place and saying, okay, we're ready to do this. So, we need to stay spiritually energized. We need to bring faith and hope and joy into every place that we step into. It doesn't matter what skill set we're at. It doesn't matter where our role is. It doesn't matter how we're serving. Every single one of us can do that. That we can step in and we can say, I am bringing like a sense of the kingdom of heaven. The kingdom of heaven is with me because Jesus is with me and the Holy Spirit is in me and I'm anointed. And so because of that, the kingdom of heaven is a kingdom of faith. And the kingdom of heaven is a kingdom of hope. And the kingdom of heaven is a kingdom of healing. And the kingdom of heaven is a kingdom of restoration. And the kingdom of heaven is a kingdom of passion and purpose. And I bring all of that when I step in. And if you don't do anything else, I honestly believe, so what Ken said downstairs about what took place, I still remember the first LC that I led for, not refuel. I remember refuel. It was great. It was fire. I remember the first LC that I led for. And I was like, this is not what I experienced at refuel. And so there is something going on in the church. There is a spiritual temperature that has been raised. And if we're going to have momentum of growth within our life, this is one of the most practical things that we can do, is building within us a deep-rooted spiritual time with God, where we understand that this isn't about greeting people, it's not about creating compelling environments because we want cool things. It's about the kingdom of heaven advancing in the lives of people. And when we lead and we create gatherings, that's what's going on. So, we prepare. Now, like I said, I think it's, in my mind, that's a basic, like, how do you create growth? Well, you got to prepare for it, right? Here's practical ways of preparing for it. What happens after you prepare for something? What's the next step? Do it. Just do it. right? So some people prepare for stuff their whole life and they never do it, okay? So preparation without, like, the next thing that we do is execution. Preparation without execution is pointless, okay? You benefited your own life, you haven't benefited anyone's life around you. Like, that will not create momentum of growth. Okay? So we actually prepare to execute, okay? And we're never going to grow if we don't actually execute in what we're preparing for. Okay? So we're never going to figure out how to grow in things if we don't learn how to execute the things that we're preparing for. So we need to do something with that, right? My personal belief is you're never going to be as ready as you'd like to be. And you're going to stuff it up, and you're going to fail, and you're going to do a botch-up job at times. And that's really okay. Like, there's absolutely nothing wrong. I think it's worse to prepare for something and not try it than prepare for something and do a horrible job at it. Okay? I would rather see the attempts of that. So Joe has a rule when people work out with him. He doesn't care how much weight you lift. He cares how hard the struggle is. Okay? That side. If you're not pushing yourself in that way. If you're not willing to fail in that way. So we prepare and we execute. Failure is not in opposition to growth. Rather, it's a conduit for growth. Okay? I don't think we're like failing and stuff. I'm just letting you know, if you're preparing for something, let's get practical like with the worship leaders. If you've been preparing to finally like learn how to set up a song and then you just keep choking and you won't do it, you're never going to know if you can actually do it. Right? So I put all of this time in preparing for something and I've been thinking through it for a really long time and I just choke and I won't do it. And you're never going to know how it goes until you do it. And so we execute in that way. And this is where I think, personally, this is where most people stop growing. So they prepare, they execute, and it either goes like this and it goes really well, or it goes like this. So if it goes like this, they think they failed, and that means they should never do it again. If it goes like this, it means, well, I did everything right, and thus I can just keep moving forward. And there's a plateau. Okay? Does that make sense? So, what is the key for us not plateauing and actually creating momentum for growth? This is my opinion. There's no science behind this. There's no like biblical like Bible verse for me to go to say this is God's word. This is just my opinion. How do you get past, once I execute, plateauing in that moment? So when you're asking yourself, what do I want to grow in? You also need to ask yourself, what have I plateaued in? What are things in your life, when it comes to your leadership, that you've plateaued in? And then why? And here's the third thing where we'll land, is what do we do to create momentum for growth? Feedback. So the definition of feedback, I like definitions. It's the process in which others, not yourself, feedback. It's the process in which others communicate how something was executed. That's what feedback is. There is such a thing as self-evaluation. Feedback is not self-evaluation. Okay? So, self-evaluation is us looking at things through our bias, and we all have a bias about things. Feedback is asking others to communicate and evaluate what they experienced with something through their bias. You want to know how they experience something, okay? So there's a reason Yelp reviews, Google reviews are popular. It's because how other people experienced the execution of something and they are sharing their opinions and thoughts about it. My favorite ones are when people go, I would give this no stars, but that's not an option, so I had to give 1 star. And you're just like, why are you even leaving a review then? Like, don't worry about it. Just say I'm leaving 1 star and here's why. Feedback. Feedback is reliant upon one trait. One trait. Teachability. If you want to be someone that has feedback in your life, I think the number one answer when I've asked this has been humility. Well, teachable people are always humble people. But teachable people are also, not everyone who's humble is eager to learn, but teachable people are eager to learn. They're also humble, right? So the one trait that someone needs in receiving feedback in their life is they need to have a teachable spirit. So I shared this at team night. Erwin McManus said this around feedback. How fast you receive feedback is in direct relationship to how fast you will grow as a leader. So your ability, the quickness in which you can receive feedback will determine how fast you grow as a leader. And he says it takes a long time for you to work through your sensitivities to be able to receive feedback. Or if it takes a long time for you to work through your sensitivities to be able to receive feedback, you're going to grow really slow. Sensitive people, fragile people, insecure people, and we all have insecurities, right? Like, I think we're all lying to ourselves. Kilgore might be the only one in this room that I would say with confidence probably doesn't have insecurities, but I'm not positive in that. But just, right?
I'll let you extend
My experience is all of us have insecurities, right? How fast can you receive feedback? How fast can you apply the feedback that you've been given? It's going to take all of us a longer time to create momentum for growth in our life if we are overly sensitive, okay? So, we need to be teachable. We need to have a teachable spirit. We need to have a spirit that says, I am eager and willing, and not only that, I'm taking initiative in being taught. Why is teachability so important? There's a lot of people that I've experienced in life who have a lot of degrees, a lot of education, and a lot of experience around things and are unwilling to learn something new. Okay? My belief is we never graduate from being students. Right? There's the saying that when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. Okay? Let that sink in. When you are ready to be a student, the teacher in your life will step in and say, because this person has a teachable spirit, I will begin to teach them. You can be a student and a teacher at the same time. But people stop, as in when we're talking, why do things stop growing? It's not because people don't prepare, that's part of it. And it's not because people don't execute, that's also part of it. The greatest reason that growth stops is because of a lack of feedback in people's lives. Honest, raw, here's what it looks like. If you want to go to the next level, here's what it looks like type feedback. That's why organizations stop growing. Right? That also plays into complacency. I want to know why people are complacent, though. I think it has to do with a sensitivity and insecurity within their life. There's a question that I haven't quite fully unpacked of what creates complacency within people. Because I just don't believe that people are okay with average. I really, it boggles me when I think people are you mean they're really okay with average or below average? That just seems counterintuitive to human nature. So where does complacency come from? Why does it happen? Okay? So question, do you have a teachable spirit? Here's how you know. You're able to name the last time that you willingly learned from someone else. Willingly, not forcefully. There's a difference. A teachable spirit is willingly learned from someone else. Zeke does not willingly learn stuff from Ashley. He willingly learns it from his teacher. He doesn't willingly learn it from Ashley. He's a little bit more forceful. And then he'll tell us when he's the smartest person as well, because we didn't know certain things. You're able to name the last time that you willingly learned from someone else. That's how you know if you have a teachable spirit. So if feedback is key to breaking the limitations of growth, and it's key to us not plateauing, it's key to your leadership growing, and if your leadership grows, the whole church begins to grow, our church begins to grow. I want to just quickly take a second and talk about feedback. And talk about just questions around feedback, and talk about personal feedback and how we give feedback. So one of the things that our team leads are given, because I'm not content with us just receiving feedback. I want our team to receive feedback. So every team lead in the span of care, one of the questions that they have, or they're technically two, what can we do better as a team? And what are we doing well? There are questions that are supposed to be asked to people within the span of care, okay? And I didn't come up with it. We heard it from the worship pastor from Passion City Church, and I thought, that is a great question to ask people. It is, in my mind, hypocritical for me to give feedback to other people without asking other people to give feedback for us as a team, okay? So people within our span of care, as Dustin's been putting this together for production, I sent that to him as well. What can we do better as a team? And then, what are we doing well and not well? And we ask this because we believe in, if we're going to grow and we're going to have a momentum of growth, here's how we're going to receive feedback. Here are the questions that I have for people. It also creates buy-in for people. It doesn't matter if someone's been on our team for 6 months or 6 years, right? I'm interested, and we should all be interested in what everyone has to say about how they are experiencing being part of this team, okay? So we have team feedback, and then there's personal feedback. Now, this one's been like tricky and tough for me to like figure out. So I get it a lot. I had it this past weekend. Madeline texted me, I think it was after the 11 o'clock. If you have any feedback, I'd love to hear it. Joe asked at some point, do you have any feedback? Saturday night, Ben asked, do you have any feedback? I'm not calling them out in this moment because we haven't had this conversation. It is done with a teachable spirit. However, just asking people, do you have any feedback, isn't always helpful, right? Because you're thinking about what? How your hair looks, or about how well something went, right? Like, what exactly are you wanting with feedback? So when it comes to personal feedback, and we've talked through this preparation, a great question to ask with feedback is, hey, here's something that I'm working on. I've been working on how I step in with my preparation. And here are the specific things that I've been doing. So I'm asking you to observe me over this time and let me know how you experience my preparation for this. Pick one thing, right? Presence, personal feedback, presence. Here's what I'm working on. I'm working at how I'm carrying myself, not just on stage, but off stage. Not just when I'm in a position of learning or of leading, but from whatever area that I'm in. But overall, how are people experiencing? How are you experiencing me? How are you watching me interact with other people? And I just need your feedback in that, right? Then when it comes to skill, because this is where most of us want feedback. Most of us don't actually want feedback in how we're preparing and how we're presenting ourselves. Most of us want feedback in our skills. Here, you pick one thing. Here's what I've been working on. Okay? If it's wide open, it's not going to help you because you haven't set, back to what Jessica said, why don't people grow? Because they don't set goals. When you set a goal for yourself and you're preparing for that, and then you execute it, and then you go to someone and you say, here's what I've been preparing in, now I've executed it, here's what I'm asking for feedback around. Here's what I need. When it's too open-ended, what I have found is I'm not even watching because I'm way too concerned with myself and how I'm doing something to pay attention to what's going on with other people, right? Like, it doesn't mean that we don't care about each other. It just means we're all in that moment trying to prepare, and when it's too much, we don't know how to give appropriate feedback. So, feedback would be, I actually go to Kilgore from an audio standpoint, and I say, how does it sound? I'm not interested in how he thinks it looks. I'm interested in how he thinks it sounds from an audio standpoint. We'll go to Kathy and say, how is the stage presence? How is the energy in the room, right? So you're asking specifics in that way. If you want personal feedback, you need to ask specifics. Pick one area and choose to grow in it, right? And then ask people for feedback in that way. And then this brings us to when we give feedback, how do we actually give it? Best question to ask yourself when you're giving feedback is this going to better this person in the long run? And when I give it in this moment right now, is it going to better them in the long run? Or will it get too much in their head that it will throw them off? There is appropriate times of giving feedback right before executing something. But sometimes it doesn't always land well. So when I give it, is it going to be better for the person in the long run? Will this make this person better and make us better? And that's about elevating the person in that way, okay? So that question you have to ask yourself. Just because someone comes to you and says, hey, can you give me feedback around this? And we're 5 minutes out from starting something, sometimes it's better, instead of sharing your feedback in that moment, to just say, I'd love to, we're getting ready to start, can I share it afterwards? Sometimes afterwards, it's still not the right time, right? Sometimes it needs to be like a little bit. I mean, I'll pick on him a little bit. I had a little chat with Waylon that was not in the context of him playing, right? Because it didn't do any good, like, after he played, like, in that moment, I had to go to him later and just say, hey, here's kind of how this went, and here are my thoughts about this, and here's what I need you to do for next time, right? Because I wanted him to be in a posture of being able to receive it. He needed to be in a place where he could receive what was being said in order to know what to do with it. And feedback is not negative, okay? Like that, feedback, giving your criticism is very different than feedback. Feedback's about elevating the person, it's about building them up. You can give positive feedback in the sense of, here's everything that I thought you did well. So Madeline asked for feedback. Can I share the feedback that I gave? Because you
I
were...
haven't had a chance to fully read it, but I mean.
I'm going to read Madeline's feedback, because she did say, any feedback, any feedback. You ready for me to read this? Number one, welcome. It was very engaging and energetic. You were you. You didn't try to be someone else and lead like someone else. Keep that up. Okay? It has nothing to do with her not doing something well. It has everything to do with her doing something well. This is what I saw. This is what I experienced. I think it was really good. Keep it up in that way. The second one, moments led. So I'm speaking of all the moments that she led. They were intentional, comfortable, and secure. I think you would have been more confident if song 1 had been in a different key. Be aware of when that set was planned. And then ask yourself, can I lead in this key with confidence? Why or why not? My opinion. 1,000 Names, it's a hit or miss type song. You did great with it. Find those moments to remind people why we sing. Before the bridge, you said, this is who he is. It felt rushed. I think because of that, it was missed. Either ask another person to carry the melody or begin to sing, then say something. Start singing and then say something. So those are all around the moments that she led. 3, vocals. I think you have a bigger voice than you know. You have to dig deep and find it. I think we need to find songs that are gut songs for you so you can feel it. The question would be, do you feel like you're singing more from your diaphragm or chest and throat? Okay? And then the last one, 4, presence. Great energy and presence. It may be me, but I feel like you get in your head and thinks, in quotes, Crossroads experience. Like when she leads, she thinks Crossroads experience. But I know Madeline's training. I know where she's been. So I said, versus the way you prefer things. Lead how you wish you were led and the culture you want to see. Don't settle. Raise the standard. Okay? Us with someone that says, give me any feedback. There's positives in there, and then there's things in there that say, Madeline, here's what you need to be aware of. Now, I didn't do that. Madeline asked that at some point on Sunday. She sent me that text. I waited until today so Madeline could get through last night, that she could process through how she felt like things were led, and then share it. And I did it via text because she sent me a text. That's why. But had she come to me face to face and said, hey, do you have any feedback? It would have been very different. My feedback for Ben, when he said, do you have any feedback? I said, you need to get out from behind the microphone. You need to be okay with stepping out from behind the microphone. That was Saturday night, face to face, really brief. And then Sunday, it's what he did, right? So there's different context in how people are receiving this and how people are experiencing it, right? So, quick application for this. Preparation. How well are you preparing? Plan out a process of preparation. For whatever role it is, whatever thing it is, plan out a process of how you are actually preparing for something. If we're going to grow and we're going to have a team that's growing and you're going to be a leader that grows, you need to be able to share this with other people. I can tell people how I prepare for things. I can tell people how I can prepare for leadership community versus how I prepare for the weekend versus how I prepare for leading at youth versus how I prepare when I teach. I can communicate all of that to people. I have a process of how I prepare for it, okay? And you should have a process in your preparation and you should be able to teach it to other people. So if you don't have a process of preparation, you're welcome to chat with me. We can talk through how to be able to do it. Be able to communicate why this is your process and how you outwork that process, okay? When you can do that, you know how to prepare well. It's not faking it and it's not going through the motions, okay? Second thing, execution. Give yourself one area you're wanting to grow in. When it comes to your area that you serve within our team, give yourself one area, just one thing that you want to grow in. And let me know. And then when it comes to feedback, ask a specific person to watch that specific thing that you're trying to grow in. Don't open it up to a bunch of people. Okay? Everyone has opinions about stuff. Everyone. I don't really care about people's opinions. I care about people that want to help me grow as a leader and help our church move forward.
There's also a difference between asking for affirmation versus feedback.
Oh yeah.
So when you start opening it up to a bunch of people, you're asking for people to affirm who you are, the skills you have, versus asking for some honest feedback.
So I've shared this with our staff team, but the best feedback that I've ever been given was from Joe's dad. So most people don't know this. I never actually taught and spoke in a large group church context. It's more awkward when you guys do it slowly versus just like.
I didn't have a choice.
It's weirdly heavy
being
when you
quiet.
start.
I didn't do it until here at Crossroads. I would teach in settings like this. I would occasionally teach at young adults type things, but I never actually taught in a large group church setting until the first message that I preached was here at Crossroads. Okay? And we have pastors who have been to seminary who have spoke for a really long time. And I asked 3 of them. One of them gave me some really helpful feedback, real brief. The other 2 said, well, you know what you're doing. Little did they know I still don't know what I'm doing. And I'm just faking it the whole time. So that was 2 years ago. I went back and asked them for feedback. I'll stop asking for feedback when people don't give me constructive feedback, right? I did ask for specific things. How do you think I can make this better? How do you think it felt overall? How was the flow of it? How is my intro all the way to the landing? So there was like some specifics in it. This past year when I did the message on rest, Joe was leading worship and Joe texted me and he said, hey, my dad's watching online and he said that if you want feedback, he's willing to give it. So instead of saying to Joe, yeah, let your dad know that I want to hear it, I actually said to Joe, yes, send me your dad's number. And I reached out to him and then said, hey, Joe said that you'd be willing to give me feedback on this message. And he said, yeah, I'd love to. When can we set up a time to talk? And we set up a time a week after that. And when he called me, the first thing that he said was, hey, I'm here, and my wife is here, Susan.
You never have just a conversation with my dad, it's always headed in
And then he said, this was so good. He said, so I watched your message when you did it. I've gone back and I've watched it 3 other times. And he said, I have about 8 things to go over with you if you have time. I said, absolutely.
Wow.
And I have the document still where he walked through the whole thing. And it was the most helpful feedback that I had ever been given. And that's part of where this is coming from, of like, I didn't even know I should be asking for specifics all the time. I should be asking, here's what I'm working on when I teach. I'm working on my intros and getting this off the ground. I need you to let me know how you're experiencing this. I'm working on the substance part of this, the application part of it. I need you to let me know how this is landing and resonating. How are you remembering this later? I didn't know how to ask that. In worship leading, I did know how to ask more like practical type things. So you ask a specific person to watch this thing, know why you're asking them, back to what Joe said. There is such a thing as you just want people to affirm that you're awesome. You don't need people to affirm that you're awesome at something. That's not helpful for your life or for anyone else's life. If you need that, call your mom. If she's not able to, call Kathy. She'll let you know. You can call Susan as well. I watched a clip yesterday of Harry Styles, guilty pleasure, huge Harry Styles fan. Anyway, when Harry Styles auditioned for the first time as a 16-year-old for the X Factor, he never really sung in front of people. And he's standing there, and Simon said, so do you sing? And he said, well, I think so. I've been told that I have a decent voice. He said, by who? And he said, well, my mom and my friends. And then Simon looks at the other judges and said, no one's mom is ever right. And with Harry realized he's being considered one of the leading male pop voices of today. As a 16-year-old said, well, yes, and that's why I'm here, because I want you to tell me if I have something.
Nice.
And I was like, flip. I don't think I had that. Nope, not as a 16-year-old. There's a reason he sells out arenas. He wanted to hear one of the leading voices on entertainment let him know if he had something, right? Know why you're asking. He didn't care if Simon affirmed him. He cared if Simon saw something in him. Big difference. Ask yourself when you're asking this person, what is it about them that you think is worth hearing what they have to say? You got to ask, like, why do I want to hear what this person has to say? It's going to help you know how to ask the right people stuff. Maybe it's because they're more honest than other people, or maybe it's because they're the best at something. And then at the end of the day, have a very teachable spirit with all of it. Our team, you personally, and our whole team is going to grow exponentially when we have a teachable spirit. So that, in my opinion, is how we create a momentum for growth. Any questions? Yes, Travis. You want to come up here?
He has to be back.
Sorry, guys, you got through that. Sorry.
All right. Any specific thing that you wrote down that you're like, here's what I want to grow in and why I want to grow in it, that you just want to share with everyone?
A couple weeks ago, Joe called me out on the video for looking down a whole lot while playing, and so now that has been, like, especially that not this past weekend, but the weekend before, that was what I was really self-conscious about and wanting to, like, go back and watch, like, was I being more engaging in the audience? Was I looking up more and not so much down? Yeah, so that's something that I'm still being mindful of and trying to work towards every time.
I just want to speak into that. Both me and Dustin were talking about how much better you did this past Sunday. So, like, we noticed it. So, good job.
I think Coleman got that same feedback and he immediately like to flip the switch and now he's great at being super present.
Yeah.
There's one, this isn't about like right now, but it was a while ago and I still stuck with me. There was one frequency where I think like one of the things that like stuck in my mind most is when you said like be in the room and keep your eyes open, like keep your eyes open and your heart open, like with, you know, your states in the room. And like that thought of keeping your eyes open and staying engaged with people in the room is kind of stuck in my sense. And so even this weekend, like my force of habit was to keep my eyes closed doing nothing else. So I feel like going into it and then I was like, it's been like 10 seconds, I gotta open my eyes. But yeah, I definitely say mindful.
Anna Breimer said something to me at that little team building that we did about, like, I didn't feel very built, but that's okay. About like looking out. I don't know, nothing about that. Just, I know, I hear you. I'm on your side, but also I don't understand. I'm like, I don't feel close to the team. This is the worst thing ever. But she talked to me about looking out instead of looking like up, because I tend to like look up a lot. So it's almost like what I used to close my eyes. They're like, don't close your eyes. I'm like, okay, I'll just look at Jesus. But then it's almost the same thing. It's like I'm not connecting.
Yeah.
And so when she said that, I'm like, rats, I see what I did there. So I, this last week, tried to work on that, like looking at actual people and not the lights or whatever.
It's become a joke, my T-Rex hands on top of my guitar. It made me self-conscious about it for a while, which is probably a good thing because I try not to do it now. It happens every once in a while still,
That's funny.
but I try not to. And so now I'm like not self-conscious, I'm self-aware of it.
I'm almost working on it.
So then we just take it away.
Just stop. Don't do it to me.
I feel like I'm looking at dressing like Joe more because
You
last Sunday and I'm like, what's happening?
Oh my gosh.
You need to check the days before you get dressed, please. Yeah.
What's your
Did you-
wife wearing today?
No, I know. Never mind, don't you? No, that was awkward. Was that last week? Yeah. Jasper said, why is it Christmas already or something? Because
Yeah.
do you think that like so I hear your whole, well, never mind. You asked a specific question.
Go ahead.
Well, I was thinking about the first because I think feedback is super important and I hear you and I appreciate it all. Like just jumping back to point number 1 on preparation, because I have a very like specific process just because my life requires it and because it just works for me. And one of the things that I kind of miss, and it might be hard to do, I don't know, but back in the day, you sent us like here's a Crossroads playlist of like all the things that are either coming up that we're going to be singing, and I just find it helpful when I'm in the car to if I'm listening to that stuff on the reg, then when it gets thrown onto my list, it's not so, like I'm at least familiar, so then I can like really focus on what my part is easier than having actually learned a song I've never heard. I don't know, is that a thing? Do you have a playlist?
Yeah, we still have a playlist.
Not of upcoming songs, I don't think.
Not of upcoming songs.
Or like as you add a song, like we're gonna put this in the rotation.
Sometimes they're picked a month out, sometimes they're picked planned 3 months out.
Yeah.
So it's I don't know if it'd be a consistent playlist.
Yeah. I just sit there with that. I mean, it's not like a thing, but it's got, I don't know.
I do
Even
know we always
for-
try to do it at leadership LC before we introduce them.
Yeah, I've noticed that.
We try to do that for sure. So we have the culture leadership knows, hey, this is how we're going to do it.
Like I listen to worship music just as a rule because I like it a lot, but also it's helpful when I'm like listening to songs, knowing like this is probably what we're gonna lead into. Just, I don't know. Maybe I'm
I never entirely know.
Yeah, I know. But if it's like an Apple playlist, you can add things in as you like decide.
I thought we had an Apple playlist and a Spotify playlist. And I think they're still
Maybe they're still, they just have old goals, so I have it, because you said it's back in the day, but it hasn't been updated in quite some time, so.
There is one that's on the Crossroads website of like, the active list of songs. We currently have
That's not an active one.
You just go to the main page and I think it's under the music tab.
Oh, that's
There's one
it.
like weekend playlist or something.
Okay, that's good to know.
My mom listens to it constantly too.
I need your mother, my mom gives me all the feedback, but it's not nice ever.
Yeah, it's on, I think it's, I update it probably every 3 months. So I have like the latest songs.
I'll check it out. That's good.
All right. Think through that. Really like try to ask yourself where am I wanting to grow? Trying to grow? What am I like? Just to share with you guys, like it's a skill. I think it's a skill of learning how to set up songs better in a briefer time instead of like rambling on. So if we're talking about condensing our gatherings to a shorter time, we're still going to sing new songs, and I still have to figure out how to set it up, and I still have to figure out how to teach it. Okay? So that's a skill set that I have to grow in. I tend to err on the side of talking longer than I should. Right? So I got to figure out how to do that. That's one of those goals for me. Can I set up a song in 2 minutes, teach it, and get the church singing it? So just think through that, have that down. If you want to share it, you're welcome to with me. You can share it with whoever you want. You don't have to share it with anyone, but you're not going to get healthy feedback then.
Just for when they move like to another service, will you still have the same team singing all 4 services, or we split it?
We will talk
Yeah,
about that
it's
too.
a question.
It's off topic.
Goal.
Off topic.
I'd like to withdraw the question.
Goal right now is to sit where Ken asked for us to sit, and
Okay,
I'm trying to help us take this one step at a time.
yes, sir, okay.
So,
Great question.
it's a great question. It's not above my pay grade, but it's not a conversation currently happening. So,
Alright.
Anyway, appreciate you all being here. Let me pray for us, and then you're welcome to go home. God, I thank you for tonight. Thank you for this team of people that are here. Thank you for the leaders that are just represented in this room. And I pray that we would just continue to grow, that as we've just talked about this, how we create momentum for growth in our life, how well we're preparing for things, how we actually execute in that moment, and then the feedback that's just spoken into our life, that we would find people with wisdom, with insight, with discernment, but also people that believe in us and believe what you have called us to. And those would be the people just speaking encouragement into our life, just being part of building us up into all that you've called us to be. And so God, I thank you for tonight, and I just pray that we would just continue to step out in faith, that we would continue to lead in hope, and that we would just be filled with passion for the future. We need Jesus' name. Awesome.